Hello, Datuk Mac. How are you, Datuk Magendran?
I'm good. I'm good. Vyasa, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's life during this MCO and all?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Safe and sound. We have been adhering the MCO SOPs and all.
Okay, okay. As you can see here at the back of me, something familiar.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You look more like an outdoor guy than I am.
It's just a special for you today, with having you here on board. So, friends, today we have Datuk Magendran here. He's actually the first man from Malaysia to touch his foot on the peak of Mount Everest, right? Back in 1997, 23 May, right? And there's a as we are chatting, there's a lot of stories, a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, and a lot of triumph in climbing this whole story. So we are here to hear Datuk Magendran, who is going to share a lot of his stories of how he and his team did this climb, right? If you're here, if you're seeing this, just drop a hi, hello to Dato Magendran so that he knows that you're around. And also, don't forget to share your comments, your questions here so that he can help to answer later on in our conversation that matters. All right. Uh, Dato Magendran, how are you doing again?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So today we are here to hear a lot of your stories that you have shared again with me earlier. I found it like super inspiring. Like I was looking at the TV live. We are all watching with the whole family when you and Dato Mohandas climbed and said, we are here at the peak and you shared that with Dr. Mahathir at that point of time. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, so today we have here, let me just share with you, Royal Safe. I salute these guys. Fantastic. Anita, Glory. Hello, Anita. Rekha, Sadnandan, Satyanandan, Raja Suresh, Paresh Subramaniam. All say hello. Uh, all right. Okay, so maybe we can just start with a little bit about the background. What made you actually start wanting to climb this such a difficult mountain, Dato Magin?
Right. It all started back in 1986 when I set my foot on Gunung Dato, which is in Rembau Negeri Sembilan. So that was my first climb, and it was 884 meters in height. So when I was standing on the summit of Mount Dato, I told myself that I'm going to climb another mountain higher. So I went on and on. After Dato, I wanted to climb Tahan, which is the highest in Peninsular Malaysia. But before climbing Gunung Tahan, I had to climb a few other mountains in Peninsular Malaysia to prepare myself. And eventually, a year later, I climbed Mount Tahan. Then after reaching Mount Tahan, it was a very difficult mountain at the time. It still is. I told myself, I'm not going to stop now. I'm going to climb another mountain higher. And I set my mind to climb the highest in Malaysia, which is Gunung Kinabalu. And it took me a while, a few years. In 1993, that was my first time climbing Mount Kinabalu. And I told myself, if I can climb Mount Kinabalu, I can stop climbing. But when I reached the top of Mount Kinabalu, I told myself, no, I'm not going to stop now. I need to climb that mountain higher. So I kept on going until finally I managed to climb Mount Everest. So it was
Wow.
one mountain after another.
So from Mount Kinabalu, you straight away attempted Mount Everest after that, or did you climb other mountains around there?
I climbed many other mountains because Mount Kinabalu was in 1990, my first time climbing Mount Kinabalu. I've climbed Mount Kinabalu more than 20 times now. But 93 was my first climb. And after that, I climbed many other mountains before I got a chance to be a part of the Malaysia Everest 97 project. Because after 93, my climbing partners at the time, they had other things to do. See, they had other priorities in life. So I was left alone. So that's when I found this person whom I met during one of the climbs in Negeri Sembilan. I was climbing Gunung Angsi. And at the end of the climb, I was just sitting there resting, and I met a total stranger. So he was talking to me about climbing and about mountain conservation program in Malaysia. And
Right.
eventually, I got to know that he was the president of Malaysian Mountaineering Association.
Oh,
And he happens to, at that time, live in the same taman that I am right now.
right.
So, so we became friends, and he invited me to join the Malaysian Mountaineering Association. I became a member of the association, and from then on, I kept on climbing because you found friends with a lot of climbing programs, by the association, and that's when I knew that the association already had plans to climb Mount Everest, right? So they have already made all the groundworks to climb Everest by then. So when I was there, I was very active in the association as a member, as well as an ESCO member of the association. And when the project kick-started, I joined the project. So that's how it
Okay.
happens.
Right, right. So it started all from a simple mount in Malaysia, and then you went
That's
on
right.
to Gunung Tahan. So some Raja Suresh said here that Gunung Tahan is actually a much harder climb, right? Is it
That's
really hard? Some people say it's harder than Mount Kinabalu, right, in terms of climbing difficulty, although it's lower than Mount Kinabalu.
that's right. Tahan is definitely any time harder than Mount Kinabalu because uh, the time when I climbed Mount Tahan, there was only one route from Kuala Tahan right to the peak of Mount Tahan and back to Kuala Tahan. Now they have another route which is Merapo. And that is a shorter route to the peak. So the distance from Kuala Tahan to the peak, it's about 55 kilometers one way. So if you're doing Gunung Tahan from Kuala Tahan to the peak and back to Kuala Tahan, it's about 110 kilometers, and it will
Okay,
take approximately 7 days.
right. 7 days
Seven
up and
days.
down.
Yeah, 7 days up and down. Okay, where else? Mount Kinabalu, it's about 8.6 kilometers one way.
Right,
So to and fro, it's about 16 odd kilometers. All right, 17.2 kilometers to and fro. So you can
right.
compare the distance. Of course,
Yeah,
Mount
that's right.
Tahan is higher, twice higher, almost twice higher than Gunung Tahan, but the distance that we need to travel into the jungle to get to the
Right.
peak of Mount Tahan, it's actually treacherous,
Yes.
treacherous, and actually Mount Tahan, Mount Kinabalu, it's a tourist mountain.
Right.
It's you have all the facilities there. You don't even have to carry anything. People are
Right.
there, the porters are there to carry everything for you. We can just walk without carrying, just with the walking stick we can go up. Where else,
Right.
Mount Han, we need to carry all the stuffs ourselves, and we need to carry all the food items, and we
Right.
need to it's like you trek for 8 hours a day. When you reach the campsite, we have to pitch our tents, we have to wash ourselves, we have to prepare the dinner, and then we need to wash our clothes, all that we need to do. But on Mount Kinabalu, we don't have to do all that. As soon as we reach the rest house at 11,000 feet above sea level, the food is just ready. A buffet lunch, buffet dinner is just ready. So that is the comparison between Tahan and Kinabalu.
So that's why you really need to be tahan lah. Really need to
Yeah,
tahan
that's right.
when
Yeah,
you're
that's
climbing.
right.
Okay, so how long did it actually take? Let's talk about the Everest climb, right? How long did it take for you and your team to start planning for this climb in 1997?
Okay, the a group of climbers from Malaysia. It's a group of climbers. All right, so they went to Nepal to climb a mountain called Mount Kalapata
Okay.
back in 1983. Back in 1983, right? So 83 December. So in January 1984, 12 out of 16 climbers managed to summit Mount Kalapata. Mount Kalapata, it's about 18,000 feet above sea level. So
Right.
when this group of climbers came back to Malaysia, so they came back with a vision that is to prepare a team from Malaysia to climb Mount Everest 10 years from then. So what they did was when they came back to Malaysia, some of them, they formed the Malaysian Mountaineering Association in
Right.
1986.
Right.
Okay. And then in 1988, they signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Youth and Sports to jointly undertake the Malaysia Everest 97 project.
Right.
And they also paid some money to the Nepal authorities to book a route to climb Everest in 1997. So
Okay.
that was the procedure then. You know, if anyone intends to climb Everest, they need to make a booking very much in advance.
Right.
But these days, it is not like that anymore. You know, you want to climb Mount Everest next year, you just make the arrangement this year and you can just go, because
Right.
climbing Everest has become highly commercialized in Nepal these days. But it wasn't the case then. So they made the booking very much earlier, and due to financial constraint, they could not kickstart the project almost immediately. So they had to wait for some years. They only started planning to climb Everest sometime in the end of 1994.
Okay.
So, and then they started advertising in the club's bulletin about the Everest climb, and they started gathering as many members as possible who wishes to be a part of the training program. So, initially they had about 120 applicants who wanted to join the project. After much discussions and meetings and shortlistings, about 50 odd climbers were shortlisted to for the first training program,
Right.
which was done on Mount Kinabalu. So that was
Okay.
my second climb actually. So, but this time the climb to Mount Kinabalu was very different. We were taken up. We went up to Mount Kinabalu, and we were required to camp at an altitude of 12,500 meters on the
Okay.
mountain, and
Right.
we stayed there for about a week. And
Okay.
we did altitude training. We did other rock climbing programs. We went through rope management courses, and just basically try and live at that altitude.
Okay.
Right at the end of that training program, many gave up. Some fell sick. You know, some decided that even decided not to go on with the program anymore. So when we came back to Kuala Lumpur, there were another shortlisting took place, and about 30 climbers were shortlisted for the following
Right.
program.
Right.
That was our first ice exposure in northern part of India. So we were all
Okay.
taken to a place called Kulu Manali
Right.
in the state of Himachal Pradesh in India,
Yes.
and we were attached to the uh, Manali Institute of Mountaineering and Allied Sports at the time. So we were taken into the mountains, and we were in the mountains for about 33 days. 33 days. We were exposed to all sort of ice climbing trainings. That was my first ever exposure to snow and ice climbing. It was initially it was tough, of course, because it was my first ever exposure, uh, in that kind of environment. So we managed to climb up to 18,000 feet at the time.
Okay.
After the training program, we came back. We came back to Kuala Lumpur, and there was another shortlisting, and about 25 members were selected. Some fell sick when we were in India, and some gave up. They said that this is just too much for me. I don't think I can go on. See, so that's how, and of course, we went through 2 years of shortlistings and other team building programs. We were even sent to the military camps in Kuala Kubu Baru and also in Sungai Udang, where we were, the army personnels facilitated the team building program to bring us all together, because teamwork is extremely important in this kind of expedition. Of course, there were members who were very, very strong. In fact, some of them are extremely experienced and strong, but unfortunately, they could not work with the team.
Right.
So they were not selected in
Right.
the end.
Right.
So these are the things, and the whole training program uh, was about slightly more than 2 years, and in 1996, in December 1996, the sports minister at the time, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, announced the final 10 climbers who would take up the Everest challenge and to bring up the Malaysian flag to the highest mountain in the world.
Right. So, what did it take to qualify for that, to be in part of the 10 who finally, were shortlisted?
Right. We went through many physical training programs, physical tests, and then we were also sent for lab testing as well to check on our oxygen present in the body and also the hemoglobin contained in the blood, because when we have more hemoglobin, then there's more oxygen in the body. So there are a lot of tests took place. All right. Besides that, we were also climbing many other mountains, as part of our training program. Okay, we established our own logbook. Then we present the logbook to the committees, the selection committee members, and we will have discussions every now and then. So based on all the training program that we went through for 2 years, they sort of uh, I do not know what was the point system that was given to each climber by the selection committee members, but we could see, as we were training, as we were progressing, as we were climbing at high altitude, the local instructors, when we were training in India, at the end of the training program, the local instructors from India who trained us, they sent a confidential report to the selection committee in Kuala Lumpur. Similarly, when we were training in New Zealand, the local trainers there, they also sent confidential report to the selection committee members in Kuala Lumpur. So based on all these reports, and based on the report which was produced by the military camps, finally, they selected a team that would be best to accomplish the mission.
Right. Right. So, this is like a very, very thorough selection process to be selected as the final 10 who qualified to start climbing, right?
That's right, because it is the first of its kind for Malaysia. It Many millions of dollars, many millions of ringgit spent on the project, and they wanted to make sure that we come back successfully. So the selection process was stringent. It was professionally done. They had members from the association. They had members from various other government departments, including the Ministry of Youth and Sports, to vet through the selection process to make sure that they send the best team to
Right.
Nepal, because
Right.
of course there were critics internationally
Right.
that the Malaysians are inexperienced, and it's a suicide mission and so on. Right? So the selection committee, they were careful with this, and they wanted to make sure that they send the best team
Right.
to for the mission.
Yeah, I'm sure because it's like it will be a suicide mission if you all are not prepared, right, for something like this.
Right.
So and you all got selected in the year 1990,
1996, 28th December 1980. Sorry, 28th December 1996. The
right?
announcement.
That was just about 5 to 6 short months before the actual climb, right?
Right. They had to announce in December 1996 so that uh, we can continue with the final selected members can go through the final training phase, which was
Right,
also held in India. So
right,
that was
right.
a winter climb. So we were sent in once as soon as the final announcement was made, the selected members were sent to India
Right.
for 2 weeks, and that was during winter. And the
Okay.
snow, and the snow in the town of Manali was about 3 feet on the road.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so we were there. And luckily we got out of the mountains in time to travel back to Kuala Lumpur. Otherwise, we would have been there. We would have been there. We would have stuck there for months.
Yeah, Manali is such a beautiful place, right?
Yeah, that's right. They call it the Switzerland of the East.
Yeah,
That's the
and the
nickname of Manali.
streams and the snow.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so like from that point onwards, right? What did you all do to start the whole process of actually climbing the mount? What did you all start doing? What did you all start preparing, and how did you go on about it?
See, the training part was one thing.
Right,
So we trained. Selection committee. In the selection committee, they had a communication director. They had a training program director. So the training program director came up with a periodization plan. What are the things that we need to do? Throughout our training phase and all. Because these are some of the things that we as climbers, we were doing. But on the other hand, it's not like today. We can find almost anything on internet.
right,
We want to climb Everest. All the information are already there. You just need to Google. But back then, Google was not there yet.
yes,
you know, Google wasn't established, so we
yes,
cannot just find for information in the Google. We can no Wikipedia, no Google, nothing.
right,
Okay, they had this, so we need to find information. We And you cannot just walk into any store and buy climbing gears in Kuala Lumpur.
right,
We cannot do that. You see, so but there were agents. There were agents, outdoor agents. We need to pre-order. We need to pre-order, and they need to purchase the items for us, through their contacts elsewhere.
right,
All right. These days, if you are planning to climb a mountain, you can just walk into any mall, and you can just purchase uh,
yeah,
uh, climbing, trekking boots, or
right,
fleece
right,
jacket,
yes,
all sorts of things. You can almost get anything here, but it wasn't
yes,
like that. So
right,
we need to sit, we need to plan, we need to, if we are planning to look for items in US, we had to stay awake because the time difference is 12 hours.
right.
Right. So we need to stay awake, and we need to make a call in the middle of the night to either Europe or US, to
To
find
order,
for,
to make the orders, right?
to either to make order or to inquire about the price. You see,
Wow,
so these are the things that the other things that we need to do.
right,
Yeah, every item was ordered. It was a painstaking process to order each and every item that we had during our expedition.
right,
Right? So these are some of the things that went through at the background while the climbers were training, right? So eventually, once we got all the items, some of the items were shipped directly to Kathmandu, not to Kuala Lumpur, to save
right,
costs,
right,
right? So we could only check the items at Kathmandu and not in Kuala Lumpur. So
Wow.
we had to spend days and night, going through the checklist of the items that we purchased. And of course, there's one local sports supplier who also helped us a lot, right? Universal Fitness and Sports. They
Right.
helped us to purchase a lot of items, right? So we need to go through the list, pack everything, and then we had to take it with us to Kathmandu. So when we were in Kathmandu, we had to unpack the entire packages, to recheck and then we repack the whole thing. All right, so that we repacked in a in a in a different way, so that it can be easily transported to the base camp. So while we were in Kathmandu, the weather was not so good. We were supposed to fly into the mountains on the 10th of March. The weather was so bad, so we only flew into a place called Lukla. Okay, that's all trekking starts from Lukla. So from Kathmandu, it's about 45 to 1 hour flight. If you we took a huge helicopter to fly into Lukla.
Right.
Right. If you're flying in, if you're using a twin otter, then it's about 40 minutes or to 45 minutes. Helicopter, it took longer. So once we landed in Lukla, if you can now you can Google Lukla Airport. It is one of the most dangerous airports in the world. So you can when we reached Lukla, it took us about 2 weeks to travel from Lukla to the base camp. So we were at the base camp on the 26th March 1997. So, and from as soon as we reached base camp, it was time to acclimatize, because base camp is already 18,000 feet above sea level. It's about
Right.
5,300 meters,
Right.
and our Mount Kinabalu is about 14,000. It's 13,000 plus feet. So compared to
Yes.
base camp, 18,000 feet, it's much higher.
Wow.
And we had to be there for 2 months at the
Wow.
base camp, and to the higher camps. So we need to acclimatize. We acclimatized, and when the time was ready, we started climbing. So it was the whole process from the day we started training right up to the peak and back. Everything uh, was carefully planned. Everything was painstakingly done, and the whole process is an experience that I will never forget.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a question just came in, right? How did y'all, um, because it took a lot of practice, many years of preparation, right? How did y'all sponsor yourself? How did you, because y'all, I'm sure you have to take time off from work and all, right? Were y'all sponsored, or did y'all self raise your funds? How was the funding process for y'all?
Right. Initially, the funds did not come.
Okay.
Okay. So the selection committee members, we had a meeting. We had a meeting, and they said that the funds are not coming. We are still trying to get funds from the ministry and also from the private sectors. But for now, we cannot wait for the funds to come in yet. We have to start training, and to train, we need to spend our own money. So every member of the expedition, they started looking for their own funds initially. Like me, I took a bank loan, a small bank loan to get some of the climbing gears. Okay, initially, others who had the cash, they spend their money first, because this is another thing that the selection committee members observed. They wanted to see how serious we are, how committed we are into this project. Some of them, there were others who, when they heard that, that we need to spend our own money, they just walked away. They said that there's no way that I'm going to spend my money.
Right. Right.
Okay, this is a national mission, and it should be sponsored all the way.
Right.
I say this sort of things. So many of us, we wanted to climb, and it is a golden opportunity. It's a first of its kind, and it's a golden opportunity. And I personally don't want to miss the opportunity. It doesn't knock all the time. So I took the chance. Uh, I took up a bank loan to buy my initial climbing gears, and that and eventually sponsors started coming in, and that was after in mid 1995. In mid Our first climb to Mount Kinabalu, the club came up with some money.
Right.
Club came up with some money because the club already had some funds,
Right.
so they made use of their funds. But by the time we went to India for first ice and snow climbing exposure, some funds came in, but it was not sufficient. It was only sufficient to uh, for the training program, to pay the the adventure association in India, and to cover the expenses that incurred in India, right?
Right.
So, but we did not have enough money to buy our climbing gears, so we rented. Some of it we rented, some of it we bought ourselves. But the one that we bought, they are not of the highest quality. We just bought, just to make sure that we have something for training.
Yeah.
So those outfit that we had at the time could not withstand the cold and the wind chill factor that was there, you know. But we managed. We managed. The inner thermal underwears that we had are also not of highest quality.
Right.
I see. So we had to make do with whatever that we had at the time. And when we went to New Zealand later with the same gears, the New Zealanders told us that, if you are going to use this in the mountains, I'm not going to take you up. You know, they said that, your safety is very important, health is very important. You are planning to climb Everest, but with this kind of gears, there's no way we are going to take you up into the mountains.
Right.
So they said that, no, they rejected. They rejected they went through a quality control process, and this, they told us to gather in the room, in the hall. Okay, now take out all the gears that you have, lay down on the floor. We need to check each and every piece. So,
Right.
and then just walk about and say, no, this, no, 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 right?
Mostly rejected.
So, yeah, rejected. They said that, these are of no quality, so they said that we can help you to get some discount. We will take you to a store here, outdoor store. You can purchase whatever that you want. These are the items that you need to have. They said these are the things that you need to have for us to take you up into the mountains. All right. So we went there on strictly low budget, and when we heard this from them, we had to call our expedition leader in Kuala Lumpur and told him that, the president of Malaysian Mountaineering Association, that, this is what they told us. They will not take us into the mountains if we have this kind of gears. And so they said that. Then he said, do something, because I'm in Kuala Lumpur. I can't help you now. You have to
Right.
do something.
Hmm.
So luckily, I had my credit card, and I had to use my credit card to purchase some of the items. That's what happened to the other guys who were there with me, and eventually we had a 29-day training in New Zealand.
Wow. Crazy, crazy stuff. Huh? So a lot of things. You all had to fund yourself during the process. Half fund, semi fund, uh,
Yeah, that's right.
because it's just because of your interest.
Right. So, and then eventually the funds started coming in, and as far as financial was concerned, it was easy. Uh, Other than that, about the leave, I was lucky because I was a government servant. So, as a government servant, I was awarded unrecorded leave.
Right.
Just a few of us, because the Ministry of Youth and Sports spoke to all the employers, government department, government department as well as the private companies about the national mission and that they should be a part of the program. Some of them were given a paid leave, and there were one or two. They said that we cannot afford to give you paid leave because we need you here every day for you to perform a certain task. If you are not here, then we need to take someone else, and we need
Right.
to pay that person.
Right.
So if you can choose to climb, or you can choose to stay and work. The choice is yours. So
Mm-hmm.
some had to resign.
Right.
Some had to resign their job. Some cannot afford to resign their job because of commitments. So they had to leave the project.
Wow.
So these were some of the things that happened. Uh, there are members who resigned earlier because they wanted to climb, and eventually they were not selected to be in the program.
Wow.
So these are some of the sad things that happen,
It's big
which cannot
sacrifices.
be avoided. Right,
Yeah, and they had to take that chance and do that anyway, right?
right. That's the risk that they took.
So tell us a little bit about the climb, from the base camp. You're already there at the base camp 2 months earlier, right, before the climb. What was the process? What did you all do from that time to the climb itself?
Right. We reached base camp on the 26th March,
Okay.
and yeah, that was the first time I'm actually stepping into base camp. Right. It was like the biggest quarry in the world. It's full of
Quarry.
rocks. Quarry, yeah, full of rocks. The whole place was full of rocks, boulders,
Wow.
ice and snow. Nothing else. All right. There's no life. It's just barren. So we had to level the rocks to pitch our tents, and then we get ourselves. We need to start living at the base camp. There were many other climbers from other countries as well at the base camp. So everyone, some came after us. Some were already there when we reached the base camp. So it was kind of an acclimatization process. So we need to get used to the environment and the altitude. So we had to recheck all the items that we had carried to the base camp. We used about 70 odd porters, 100 odd porters, and about 70 yaks to transport
Wow.
the entire equipment and food stuff to the base camp. So there was a huge kitchen tent, dining tent, and other smaller tents for the climbers. So it was two person to a tent. So we need to level the ground because it's very rocky. So we need to level the ground to pitch our tents, to find a spot and pitch our tents. And then we were just walking about. We were walking about, climbing the little hills around the base camp just to acclimatize. And after some time, the Sherpas, it is their culture to perform a puja at the base camp, according to the Buddhist rituals.
Right.
So they had a priest from the nearby monastery at the base camp. In fact, many of the expeditions, there were about 12 expedition team at the base camp, and many of the teams they all had their puja on that same day, in their respective campsites. Right. So of course, as a mark of respect, we were all seated around the altar that was built on rocks. Just observed what they were doing. At the end of the puja, the expedition flag and the prayer flags, Nepali Buddhist prayer flags, were officially raised at the base camp. So it was the empty base camp became so colorful that day, because every team, they raised the flag as well as the colorful prayer flags, so it became so colorful. The base camp became colorful, and it was the beginning of the climb. So after the following day, so we started moving into the ice fall. Ice fall is one
Right.
of the most dangerous section
Right.
that is situated between the base camp and Camp 1. So
Right.
it is loose ice boulders that is actually tumbling down a steep slope from a higher ground.
Right.
So so one has to maneuver through these ice blocks safely to get up to Camp 1. See, so uh, we were training, we were climbing. Uh, there were aluminum ladders fixed across the ice cracks. We call it the crevasse. All right, across the crevasse, and we were training how to cross the ice ladders, the aluminum ladders.
Right.
There were many aluminum ladders fixed. Okay, by a team called the Icefall Doctors.
Right.
If you've read about the Icefall Doctors, this is a company uh, from UK, but they use mostly Nepali Sherpas to establish a route through the icefall. Right. Otherwise, there is no route because these are all like huge blocks of ice. So they need to establish a route from base camp to Camp 1 into through the icefall. So some cracks are just too wide for us to jump over. So they need to fix ladders, to cross over. Some ladders are vertical, some ladders are horizontal, but there are many, many ladders. So once the route through the icefall is established by this particular company, then the climbers can move into the icefall and above. So this took some time. This took some time, and and every time when we climb through the icefall and to the higher camps, we will always climb higher than the previous time. Just to test our endurance and also our physical condition. If our body can adapt to the altitude and the atmosphere over there. So these were the things that we were doing. And as we were climbing up and down the mountain, we were also establishing campsites because it's not like Mount Tahan where you just walk a trek into the jungle for about six
Yeah.
hours and you go to an opening where you have a campsite where you can pitch your tent. It's not like that. It is up to the individual team. All right, it is up to the individual team to establish their own campsites. All right, this is the route. Okay, this is going to be our route, and we are going to establish 4 campsites. But there isn't a spot. So the Indonesians' campsite can be 150 meters away from our campsite. For them, that's their Camp 1, and for us, we name it Camp 1. So it's like that. So in the early days, when Everest, when they attempted to climb Everest, they had more than 4 campsites. Some even had about 6 campsites. They established 6 campsites. But these days, expedition members will only establish 4 campsites. So we had 4 campsites. We established 3 campsites: Camp 1, Camp 2, and Camp 3. Camp 4, we did not go up to Camp 4 until the final day. Right. So it took us about almost a month and a half to acclimatize and also to establish all these 3 campsites. All right. Only the Sherpas went up to Camp 4 to establish the Camp 4. So that was the process of climbing towards Camp 3 and above. And our first summit attempt was on the first week of March. On the first week of May. Our first summit attempt. But unfortunately, our first summit attempt failed due to very bad weather, and we lost one Sherpa during that climb.
Oh.
Right, we lost
Oh.
one Sherpa. We started climbing on the 5th of May from base camp to Camp 2, and on the 6th, the weather was bad. The weather was extremely bad. We could not go anywhere. But the Sherpas, they decided to go up to Camp 4 to supply oxygen tank, because they need to carry the oxygen tank and leave it at Camp 4.
Right.
So
Right.
three Sherpas went up to Camp 4. On the way down, one Sherpa just slipped off the slope
Oh
and slided
no.
all the way down 1,000 meters down, and he landed at the base of of Mount Lhotse.
Okay.
Right? So and we established a search party, and about an hour later we found his body, but he was already dead by then. And we were sad because I know this guy very well. We have been trekking together, you know, on our way to the base camp earlier in March. So when he lost his life, we were sad. We were sad, and as a mark of respect, we told the climbing Sherpa. He's called the Sardar. Sardar is the climbing leader among the
Right.
Sherpas.
Right.
That should we abandon our climb as a mark of respect? So he said no. Nothing can happen to him now. He's already dead. So we put his body in a tent, and we waited for good weather, and we started climbing again. He said that we can pick his body up on the way down after summiting Everest. But unfortunately, the weather turned extremely bad after that. We could not climb. We went up to Camp 3. The 2 days later, we went up to Camp 3, and we were supposed to move up to Camp 4 that morning, but the weather picked up and it was extremely bad. We had to hold on to the tent. It was rattling.
Wow.
The tent was rattling, as if it's going to be blown off from the slopes of Mount Lhotse. So, and then we got a call from the base camp saying that they received the weather report from the Tribhuvan International Airport, Nepal, and also from the Indian sources that the weather is going to be bad for the next 72 hours, and there's no way that we can climb. So they told us to abandon the climb as soon as the weather subsided. So we were holding on in our tents for some time. There were four of us. There are four of us. So initially the weather was not that bad. So my two other partners, Gary Chong and Fauzan, they radioed us, and then they told us that the weather looks a bit okay. I think we can go down. So they left the tent.
Right.
They were at the neighboring tent, so they left the tent. But I told Mohan that I think we should wait for a while. So as soon as they left, probably not even 30 meters away, 30 meters down, the weather picked up again. The bad weather picked up again, and they had to find refuge in a nearby a foreign tent.
All
Luckily,
right.
there weren't anyone in the tent because the other climbers from other countries, they have already left much
Right.
earlier. So
Right.
they had to get into this other tent, and we were just holding on to our tents and just waiting for the weather to subside. And when the weather subsided, we just took our chances and got out of the tent at base camp at camp 3, and we moved down to camp 2 uh, as fast as we could. And when we reached camp 2, the weather was good, and the Sherpas decided that we can all move to base camp. So we had this inflated stretcher that we can actually just pull it along on the ground, on the ice. So we had this inflated stretcher. So we put Nima Rinzi's body.
Right.
So on the stretcher, tied him up, and we slowly dragged the stretcher down to base camp. And it was one of the longest journey from camp 2 to base camp because we were actually dragging the body down. So the movement was extremely slow, and it took us about many hours, more than 8 hours, to actually reach the base camp. So
Wow.
as soon as we reached the base camp, the Sherpas had a special prayer ceremony for the late Nima Rinzi, and we had a meeting. Then we looked into all the weather reports from various sources, and the expedition told us that I don't think we can climb for the next few days. So now uh, the season will be closed at the end of May. Okay, so now
Wow.
that end of May, by end of May they'll close the season,
Right.
and
Right.
they will dismantle all the aluminum ladders that are fixed,
Right.
you know. So once the aluminum ladders are dismantled, the climbing season is over.
Right. And so you
So
all were running short of time already there.
yes, yes, that's right. Because we did not expect the weather to be bad that long. So since our first attempt failed, so and we were back at the base camp, so
Right.
we had to recover completely to make sure that we are full of energy, we are 100% ready for the final summit attempt. So we had a meeting and we decided that we cannot stay at the base camp to fully recover. So we decided to go down to the tree lines in the next 1 or 2 days. So on the 11th of May, all the four of us decided to go down to the tree lines. It was
That was
just
below the
just above just above a place called Namchi Bazaar, where there are a lot of trees. So we went all the way down there to rest for 2 days, and we were told that wherever you go to rest, make sure you come back to the base camp on the 15th of May to prepare for the final summit attempt.
right.
So as planned, we came back. We were back at the base camp on the 15th of May, and the weather was still bad on the 16th and 17th. On the
At that
18th
point
of May,
at that point of time, how many climbers were there in the Malaysian team?
there were only four of us left.
Four, right.
Yes,
At
out
the
of the
beginning it
10,
was 10, right?
yeah, in the beginning there were 10 of us, excluding one doctor and one RTM crew member. So yeah, there's one more thing I need to tell you. Um, a climbing permit is consists of 12 climbers.
Right.
When the Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Civil Aviation and Tourism Nepal
Right.
issues a climbing permit, we can
Right.
have a maximum of 12 climbers in a team.
Right.
Okay,
Maximum.
a maximum of 12 climbers in a team. They can have lesser,
Right.
but they cannot
Right.
have more than 12 in one
Right.
climbing permit.
Right.
All right, so we had 10 climbers, one doctor, and one RTM crew member.
Right.
Okay, but the doctor managed to climb up to Camp 2 because all the 12 climbers were given permit to climb above base camp.
Right.
Those without climbing permit, they can only stay at the base camp.
Right.
Okay, so the doctor managed to climb uh, up to Camp 2. While he was at Camp 2, there were others who were falling sick at the base camp. So the
Right.
expedition leader decided that the doctor don't have to climb.
Right.
So and stay put at the base camp to make sure that everyone is healthy. All right, and there were three RTM crew members. But since we could only accommodate one RTM crew member,
Right.
the other two had to share. The other two had to get into another expedition which had less than 12 members.
Right.
You know, so there were another British expedition. There were only about 9 or 10 members in the team. So these two RTM crew members just joined the other, just to make sure that they are at the base camp with
Right.
us.
Right. Right.
So so that's what happened. So when we were acclimatizing from base camp to Camp 2 and uh, Camp 3, one after another, members of our Malaysian team gave up.
Right.
Gave up. Right. So all the 10 climbers, the RTM crew members, and the doctor managed to reach Camp 2. Right. After Camp 2, uh, two members gave up.
Right.
Two.
Right.
4 members gave up. Okay, there were only 6 of us. After
Right.
Camp 2, 4 members gave up. There were only 6 of us.
Right.
All right, and these 6 members managed to reach up to Camp 3. All right, at Camp 3, another 2 gave up.
Right.
So there were only 4.
Okay.
So there were only 4. So during our first summit attempt, there were 4 of us. And during our final summit attempt, there were four of us.
Right. So
So
it was the same four
yeah,
that
the same four. Yeah.
right. So
So
what actually made some of the team members give up during in various phases in the climb?
okay, the first casualty was our only lady member.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she had some problems with the Achilles tendon,
Right.
right? And then the other members, they also had some health issues, breathing problems, not well. One member was just coughing non-stop. He was just coughing non-stop until he had injured his the lower part of his rib cage
Right. Right. Right.
because of too much coughing.
Yeah.
Okay, that sort of thing. And then it's a very harsh condition at the base camp.
Yes.
Sometimes the temperature is way below zero. And the wind is so cold, and we need to breathe that very cold air into our lungs. And so it's not an easy thing to be there for a prolonged period of time. So that condition has caused a lot of health issues among members, including me, including in fact all of us had some kind of issue, health issues, but we somehow managed to recover faster than the others, right? So this happens in every team. Every member, even the Sherpas, go through this kind of difficulties, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's about recovery. Who recovers faster? So I was probably lucky in the sense that just the four of us, we although we fell sick in between, but we recovered in time, to climb up to the summit.
Right. It must be really really tough. And did you on your own, right? Did you have feelings of like giving up at any point of time before the final summit?
Of course, we were faced with a lot of difficulties, a lot of odds in terms of weather. Okay, we see climbers dying. Uh, of course, one is Nima Rinzi, who fell to his death. And then there was this British expedition leader who just died at the base camp in the sleep.
Oh no.
We have seen Sherpas just falling into the crevasse,
Wow.
injuring themselves, being rescued, being heli lifted, evacuated from the base camp. And we have seen a lot of other issues, internal issues. The Japanese team, probably the most sophisticated, well prepared team at the base camp. They had some internal issues, and they just decided to pack up and leave.
Oh
A lot of
no.
things, all right? So, there were 180 climbers at the base camp that year, with only one goal, that is to go up to the summit, right? So everyone, each and every one of us, we were positive. We always sit and discuss of how to overcome, deal with issues, and come up with solutions. Always positive solutions. So it was a positive aura all around us. With only one thing in our minds, that is to climb up to the summit of Mount Everest. It wasn't me, it wasn't Mohan, it wasn't Gary, or it wasn't Fauzan or anyone else. It's about the flag, the Malaysian flag, being on top of Mount Everest. That was what was in our mind at the time. Okay, and that's the reason why we were there for in the first place, to make sure that it's a teamwork, and we work together to make sure that the national flag flies on the summit of Mount Everest. So that was the goal. And we sang the national anthem every morning at the base camp.
Wow.
You know, we will have a roll call, at a certain time, every morning, every time when we were at the base camp, we do that, roll call. So then we'll sing the national anthem at the base camp. Okay, so to keep our spirits high at all times. So I never had the thought of giving up. We did everything that we could to make sure that we look forward to climb the mountain. Even though I had an injured knee at the time, I had some gastric issues because of the food, but I managed to overcome all this with the help of the doctor as well as team members.
So, how was your final ascent to the summit? After all these things, you all had to go down. After the first trial, you came back down. Injuries, death in the team, and then how was the final ascent?
Right, as I mentioned to you earlier, we were back at the base camp on the 15th. Right, so the weather was still bad. We held on at the base camp on the 16th, just recovering and just doing other stuff, drying our socks and the thermal underwears, by the fire. And on the 18th of May, the weather was good. The weather was good, and we also got a report from our Indian partners in India that we have to make sure that we leave the mountain by the 27th of May, because after the 27th of May the weather is going to be extremely bad. So whether whatever happens, so we have to summit before this 27th and leave the mountain by then. We have to be down. So and that was our only shot, and everyone was praying to make sure that we accomplish our mission. So on the 18th morning at about 5 a.m., most of us were already at the edge of the icefall, fastening our crampons. Crampons are the spikes that are fitted to our ice boots, right? So we were there, and then at the icefall, of course, as usual, there was some prayer recital. Then we moved. Of course, during our acclimatization period, we will climb from base camp to camp 1, and then we'll put up a night at camp 1, and then from camp 1 we move on to camp 2. But after going up and down several times, and once we are used to the terrain, we can speed up our process of climbing, and we don't have to stay at camp 1 anymore. Camp 1 we will just leave one tent at the campsite just for any emergency purposes.
Right.
So otherwise, we will not put up at camp 1. We will climb all the way straight to camp 2, because we can do it in 6 hours. From base camp to camp 2, we can do it in 6 hours.
Right.
So there were 6 of us. 6 of us, we left the base camp and we climbed towards camp 2. 4 climbers and 2 support crew.
Right.
They were based at camp 2. They were based at camp 2 at the time, just to make sure that they take turns to be at the radio base, just in case if there's any communication issues, then they can relay the message from camp 2 to the base camp.
Right.
Because when we were at the higher camps, we cannot communicate direct to those who are at the base camp. Right? We have to, but those people who are at camp 2 can hear us.
Right.
So, and they will relay the message to base camp. So for that purpose, we needed to have another 2 climbers at the camp at camp 2.
Wow, so much of preparation.
Yeah, so we had one radio base at camp 1 at base camp, and another radio base at camp 2.
Right.
Just in case. Right. So Major Muhammad Rizan and also Borhan Ibrahim.
Right.
They were at camp 2 together with Murthy Maniam. He was also there at camp 2. So there were 7 of us. We left base camp, and the 4 of us reached camp 2 Mohan, Gary, Fauzan, and myself, we reached Camp 2 first. All right. And probably an hour or so later, Major Mohammad Rizan joined us at Camp 2. But the
Wow.
other two, they could not keep up with us. So they had to halt at Camp 1. And they only joined us the next morning. So that was one of the reasons why there were only four of us in the end. Some of
Right.
them, they could climb, but it is just that they cannot keep up with the time.
Right. Right.
See, in 6 hours, the four of us can climb from base camp to camp 2 in six
Right.
hours.
Right.
But there were others who could only reach camp 1 in 6 hours. That means they need another
Oh.
6 hours to catch up
Right.
with us at camp 2. So
Right.
that was one of the reasons why finally there were only four of us, right? Because timing is crucial. We
Yes.
cannot spend too much time on the track, on the trail. I see. So the five of us were at camp 2 on the 18th late afternoon, and two of them halted at camp 1 on the 18th. The next day morning, on the 19th morning, the other two caught up with us at camp 2. And the weather became very, very bad again for the next 2 days.
Wow.
So 19th, the weather was extremely bad. On the 20th, the weather was extremely bad. So we could not do anything. All we did was to sit around the fireplace and just warm ourselves. All right. So on the 21st morning, the weather was not so good, but we know if we don't move, chances of us submitting is going to be extremely slim. So we decided to move on. So we took the chances. Although the weather report says that the weather will be good later in the afternoon, but we don't want to wait until afternoon. See, so we left in the morning as early as possible. So we moved towards Camp 3, and by afternoon we were already at Camp 3. And after about 8 a.m. or so local time, the sun started coming up, and it was warm and nice. So we went up to Camp 3, but our tents at Camp 3 was partially buried under the snow
Wow.
because of bad weather. So of course we had a shovel with us. So I had to shovel the snow on the slopes of Mount Lhotse, shovel the snow off, and then got into my tent, and then started preparing for the next day. So we had so now from Camp 3 onwards, we had to cook ourselves. We had to boil water. We need to collect snow and then put it into a mess tin. Melt the snow, make water, and make drinks. All right. So these are all like easy food. We just heat up the food and we just eat. So that was
Right.
what we did. Actually, Mohan has been Dato Mohan has been my tent mate all the way through until Camp 3. And since he's a good cook, so I had no issue with food on the mountain. So he will do all the cooking for me. So so we had some good meal, and then we slept early that night. And the next day morning, got up early. Waking up, just getting out of the sleeping tent is one of the biggest challenge every morning. We need to pull the zipper of the sleeping bag very slowly, uh, because we don't want to knock the walls, the wall of the tent, because there will be a layer of frost inside the tent because it's so cold
Oh.
outside, and
Right.
we are sleeping. The tent is warm and we are
Yes. Yes.
breathing hot air
Yes.
out. So there will be a layer of frost inside the tent, full of, and if we knock the tent, and the frost will just drop on us and it will be so cold. So we have to carefully, unzip, come out, and then while still in the sleeping bag, we need to, wear our climbing gears, the top and the bottom, and then slowly, uh, pull the zipper down of, and then wear our climbing boots and whatnot. So that is one of the most difficult part. The first step is always the most difficult every morning at that temperature. Then we started moving after some time, and our expedition leader, late Noramli Sulaiman, he has been calling us from 4 a.m. in the morning. Are you guys up? Are you guys ready to move? And we are still in the sleeping bag, trying to get some sleep. I say, since he could not see us, so I say, yeah, yes, yeah, bang, kita ni tengah, we are getting ready and whatnot. I say, so finally we left Camp 3 and we started moving up to Camp 4. It was another painstaking climb with so many climbers, but not as many as you see these days. All right, but there were a long line of climbers, all fixed to the same rope, and by afternoon, I reached Camp 4, and I was followed by Gary Chong, and then soon after by Fauzan. So Mohan was still on his way up. So this time at Camp 4, since the we cannot carry that many gears, so we need to share one tent. Three climbers had to share one tent. So it was really, really cramped. So since I was there and I helped the Sherpas to pitch the tent together with Gary, so Gary, Fauzan, and myself, the three of us got into a tent. And while we were there in the tent, Mohan came, and since he was the fourth person to reach Camp 4, he had to join the other two Sherpas in another tent.
Right.
Right. So that was in the afternoon of 22nd day of May 1997.
Right.
It was extremely windy, and that was about 7,900 odd meters above sea level. That place is also called the dead zone. Okay, many climbers have died there, including a few the previous years. The previous year in 1996, many climbers died. In that part of the world. The wind was extremely strong, and we need to prepare. So it actually took a long time to actually heat up the water, because the oxygen content there is extremely low. So without oxygen, you will only have yellow flame from the stove and not the blue flame,
Right.
because
Right.
there's blue flame. There's that the oxygen content in the air is very, very less. So the
Right.
yellow flame does not heat up the water as fast as the blue flame. So it took us it took us more than an hour or so just to get the water
Wow.
heated up, with that kind of weather condition. So the water did not boil. It just got heated up a little, and then we managed to have some light food and snacks, and just rested because it's already we are actually planning to move toward the summit later that evening. So there's no time to sleep, and we need to also answer nature's call in that harsh condition. We need to walk out of the tent, and then we need to do our business there, in a designated spot, um, and there were other team members there as well. And by 10 something, by 10, we were already preparing to move out to the summit. So the night was bright, but it was extremely windy. Many of the team members from other countries, they already left. We were in fact the last team to leave Camp 4 at the time. Others left about 10 o'clock. Some even much earlier than us. So there's another thing that I must share here. When we were at base camp, sometime in April, the Indonesians summited Everest first. Okay, in 1997, the Indonesians were the first in 1997 season. Indonesians were the first to reach the Everest summit because they were already at the base camp in December 1996. Right, so they were there in December, and they have fully acclimatized by the time the rest of the team reached base camp. So they started as soon as the ladders, the route through the icefall was established, the Indonesians started climbing towards the summit. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the 16th of April, they summited Everest. And when they came back to the base camp, they just told us that, be careful on the Hillary steps, because there is one dead body hanging upside down.
Right.
Right. So uh, when they said this, we immediately had a meeting and we assigned three Sherpas, three climbing Sherpas to move at least an hour ahead of us from Camp 4 to cut the body loose from the Hillary
Right.
steps.
Right.
But before our Sherpas could do that, the other team members from other countries, you know, uh, the team led by Guy Cotter from New Zealand, and the other team members, they found the body first, and they checked the body and they cut the body loose into the ravine. So by the time our Sherpa went to this Hillary steps, the body was no longer there. So they continued climbing and waited for us on the summit. So three Sherpas. So we had seven Sherpas with us, seven high altitude Sherpas with us that morning. Three left earlier, so there were four with us. And as we were leaving Camp 4, Mohan had some issue with his oxygen hose.
Right.
Okay, had some issue, so we had to spend a little bit more time to fix it back so that he can just use it, because breathing apparatus are extremely important and we don't have spare. If it doesn't work, we are not climbing.
Right.
So luckily we managed to fix that and we started climbing. It was a very slow climb, extremely slow. It was like slow motion. The final stretch from Camp 4 to the summit is only about 800 meters in height. In
Very
height, it's
close.
about 800 meters, because the summit is 8848 meet 8,848. Camp 4 is about 7,900 plus. So
Right.
there's 800 odd meters, to cover, and it took us almost 12 hours, 12 and a half hours
Wow. Wow.
to complete that section of the mountain. Uh, it was the hardest part of the climb. Hardest because we had to spend so many hours, in an highly exposed area. The movement was extremely slow. Uh, of course, we had oxygen with us, but the oxygen, it did not make us feel sea level. You know, it only it helped us to be conscious of what's happening around us. Without the presence of the oxygen, probably we would be hallucinating. But with the presence of oxygen, we know what was happening around. We know what are the things that we need to do, how to tackle the terrain. So the movement was extremely slow, and every time when I pause to breathe, I'll turn back to see if Mohan is inside. All right. So it was eventually when we started, it was dark. So we could only identify there's another climber at the back, with their head torch,
Right.
and about 100 meters after we started climbing, about 100 meters or so after we started climbing, I was already ahead of all the three of them, and we all had our walkie-talkie on the front pocket, of
Right.
our suit. We
Right.
all a walkie-talkie each, so we could hear whatever they speak. The team speaks, or what all we could hear all the communication that was taking place. So I could hear Fauzan calling the base camp, and informing them that he could no longer climb
Oh
because
no.
of some health issues.
Right.
And so that's when I just pulled out the radio and told him that Fauzan, we are not very far away from you. We are just I could see your head torch. You're not very far from here. Just take a break. We are in this together and we want to make it together. So just take a break. Just rest there for about 10-15 minutes and see if you can come back, if you can recover. But after that, he just radioed and told us that uh, he can't move on, and he decided to retreat. So when he
Right.
decided to go back to Camp 4, one Sherpa followed him. Okay,
Right.
followed him down.
Right.
All right. So then there were three of us. So there were three of us, and we continued climbing. And there was a point where uh, Gary was at the back of me, and he was like holding on to his fingers, of course, under the gloves, under the mittens, and
Right.
he looked as if he's having some trouble. Could could,
Right.
some trouble. So I asked him what's happening. So he told me that I'm fine. I'm fine. You just go ahead. You just go ahead. So in the dark, I told him that the sky is already getting brighter. Because I could see that orange line on the horizon. It was
Right.
like 4 or so a.m. in the morning. I could see the
Wow.
that orange reddish line on the horizon. I said that the sun is already coming up, Gary.
Right. Right.
I think let's move on because we don't want to be late. So he
Right.
said, you just go ahead. I'll catch you up at the balcony. So balcony is another. There's this natural resting spot. You know, so from the slope of the mountain, we just get onto the balcony before we just climb along the knife edge ridge towards the summit.
Right.
So so when I reached the balcony, uh, as I was about to reach the balcony, I heard the radio call from Gary to base camp saying that he has decided to turn back. Said that
So
he has.
close and yet.
So he was like probably about 450 meters, 500 meters below the summit.
Right.
So he said that he's turning back because he could not feel his fingers.
Oh no.
Feel his fingers. So when he decided to turn back, another Sherpa accompanied him to Camp 4. So
Right.
now just Mohan and me and the other two Sherpas.
Right.
So we rested for a while at the balcony, and I started moving up towards South Summit before taking another break and before changing to a new bottle of oxygen. So as I was climbing, the sun was up. It was bright and nice. It was quite comfortable, but due to the lack of oxygen as well as the altitude, the movement was still at a very slow pace. So we kept on climbing, and every time when I'm just stopping, pause for a while to take a breather, I'll turn back to see if Mohan is in the back, and I'll wait for a few seconds just to see if his head just pops out of the jagged ridge, because the terrain is a bit jagged, so sometimes you can't really see the person at the back. So so as soon as his head pops out from those peaks, I'll say, oh yeah, Mohan is on his way up, so I can continue. So and then I when I reached South Summit, I waited there, and then Mohan joined me on the South Summit. So the Sherpas helped us to switch the oxygen bottles to a new bottle. So with full blast of oxygen into our system, and took some light snacks and some drink, and we moved on. Okay, I moved on, and then there was this another challenging section of the summit, which is called the Hillary Steps. It took a while for me to clear the steps. It was quite challenging. I had some difficulties, but eventually I managed to pull up myself up over the steps, and I continued climbing until I reached and I was closing in. As I was closing in, uh, it was cloudy, it was misty, it was white out. I could not see anything beyond, but there was these three Sherpas just sitting on a hillock. But before that, of course, as I was nearing the summit, I saw the other climbers who already reached the summit. They were already on the way down. So as they were going down, they just cheered and they say, "Hey, guy, hey man, you're almost there. Keep on moving. You're almost there." So that, actually that was a booster for me. That kept me going and going. So as I was nearing the summit, I saw the three Sherpas, and I was wondering to myself, why are they sitting there? Why are they there? I can't see the summit, but they're there. And I'm not crawling. I'm not on my force, because I had this idea. that one will probably crawl towards the summit, because the Indonesians did that when they came back, to the base camp. Their Russian guide told us that they finally had to crawl to the summit. So I had that in my mind. I was telling myself that I'm not crawling, so that means the summit is not near yet. And when I saw the three Sherpas sitting there on a hillock with a whiteout background, I told myself that probably uh, probably I'm too late. I could not keep up with the pace, or why are they there? Why aren't they waiting for me on the summit?
Right.
So as I approached them, I just knelt down. I, took a few breather, and I asked, "How much further?" So one of the Sherpa asked me, "Where else do you want to go? This is summit." You know, and as they were saying, the clouds just lifted, and it was a 360-degree view
Wow.
of the lower mountains. It was a beautiful sight. It was a moment of truth. I just sat on the slope of the summit, just pulled out my walkie-talkie, and just called the radio, called uh, you know uh, Cam 2. Major was there at the radio base, and I told him that this is Mag, and I'm calling from the summit of Mount Everest. Okay, the time was 11:55 a.m. in the morning, and
Wow.
I could hear them cheering, and they said, "Congratulations, Mag!" Of course, in Malay, Tania Mag, do you realize that you are the first Malaysian to set foot on the summit of Mount Everest? And but
Eh,
that's when it actually struck me that I'm actually the first Malaysian to set foot on the summit. Until then, for my only focus, my only goal was to make sure that I reach the top and raise the flag. I say, and after that, the next question was, where is Mohan? So I told him that he should be joining me here on the summit anytime. He should be probably on his way. He's already closing in. So about 15 minutes later, Mohan joined me on the summit, and we radioed again to the base camp and informed them that we are already on the summit of Mount Everest. The national flag is flying here on the summit, so we could hear all the
wow.
cheers, all the voices from base camp, and also camp 2. And after that, it was quiet. So we just said that we did not actually communicate with each other. It was all just expressions, because we had our oxygen masks, and with the goggles, the sunglasses. So it was just hand signs and facial expression. And I just removed my oxygen mask for a while I was on the summit to for one or two photographs. It is not like now, where we have digital cameras. At the time, no, there was no digital camera.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we had to load the film roll into the camera, and we had to take photographs, and we had to wait all the way to be back to Kuala Lumpur to actually develop the films to know if the photos are
It
okay.
worked.
Until then, it's just we just go around clicking, right? So we had there were 6 still photo cameras on the summit. I had one. Mohan had two. One was loaded with still photo film, and the other one was loaded with slide films. The one that he had with the still photo was jammed up. The press, the press Utusan, a reporter, actually gave 3 still photo cameras to the Sherpas to be carried to the summit to take photographs. Initially, the cameras were working, but later, when we were on the summit, while we were holding the Malaysian flag, and at the time, the cameras were all jammed up.
Oh
They could not
no.
take any more pictures. So the only camera the still photo camera that worked was mine at the time. So whatever photo that was captured on the summit with the national flag, the Malaysian flag, was all from my camera. So luckily my camera worked, and we had a good 2 shots, just 2 shots, you know, on the summit with the Malaysian flag, and that was the photo that actually appeared in the national dailies
Right,
uh,
right.
when we came back from Kuala Lumpur, when we came back from Nepal. So So that's what happened. So it is not like these days where we can have hundreds of digital photos, and now we can just check there and there to see if the photos turn well. So all that did not happen then. So we had to wait until we come back to Kuala Lumpur. But anyway, the feeling of being on top of the world was much more beautiful than the view. The feeling of realizing a Malaysian dream. I know at that point that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Malaysians were actually glued to their television, were waiting to see Malaysians summiting Mount Everest. And we did not disappoint them. So the feeling of being there, the feeling of realizing a Malaysian dream was far more beautiful than the scenery that I saw from the summit.
And how was the scenery at the summit?
It was a 360-degree view of other lower mountains. Uh, it's not a it's not 100% clear. It was clear in certain areas because much of the areas were blocked by thick clouds. So in between those clouds, there are patches of a view towards the bottom, to the plains, the glaciers, and other mountains. The one that was very close to Everest was Mount Lhotse, the fourth highest mountain in the world. That is the neighboring mountain. So in fact, Camp 4, or the South Col, is actually situated on the saddle between the two mountains, the saddle of Mount Lhotse and Mount Everest. And
Right.
then Mount Makalu, sixth highest mountain, the fifth highest mountain, Mount Makalu was also nearby. And then the Rangbuk Glacier, the Kangshung Glacier was also visible, was very clear, and the plains and the plateaus of the Tibetan side on the other side. So all those was visible. It was a view of a lifetime, and I can
How
still
did you
visualize the view
feel?
now.
How did you feel, being really on the top of the world and looking at all the mountains down there and the glaciers and all?
It was awesome, and tears just roll down. Tears just roll down automatically. No words, just amazed with the creation of God. And just being there at the rooftop of the world. That was one wonderful feeling. Very difficult to describe with words, but that was such a beautiful feeling just to be there.
Awesome,
So
awesome.
it
I mean,
was not just a dream. It was not a dream of a certain group, but it was a Malaysian dream, and it was a pioneering feat for the Malaysian team. So it was. I knew then that we are going to set a very good example for more Malaysians to do a lot of other things. So it was actually a very nice feeling. More so being a teacher, facing students every day, and they also know that I go off every now and then for my training towards uh, Everest expedition. So they know that that I'm climbing and I'm training for the climb, for the epic climb. I used to talk to them about perseverance, about how not to give up, how to plan things. So as I was climbing towards the summit, all this was it kept appearing in my mind that I must make it. I must make sure that I reach the summit, because I cannot face my students as a person who did not reach the summit, because otherwise all that I've told them, they it will backfire. They will. I know, I was afraid that they might just ask me the same question. What happened to you, sir? You told us a lot of things about perseverance, so what happened to you? I don't want to face such a situation. That was one of the scariest thing, as I was that was kept bothering me as I was climbing towards the summit. Because when you become successful, you can prove a point. You can tell them, see, this is what I was talking to you all this time. So that was one of the things that was that was actually bothering me. And it kept coming to me, I need to go back and face my students as a person who have reached the summit. I want to be successful. I cannot just go back and say that, oh, cikgu, saya tak dapat sampai. I cannot do that. I cannot face them with that sort of thing. So that was another thing that kept me going, until I reached the summit.
I was just about to ask you that question, or what kept you going, and what was the deep driving factor? Because to do some things like this, it's not just an ordinary dream. You have to have that very very deep thing inside of you to get through the next step and the next step, and when each step is so hard, right?
That's right. Because even when we were training, initially when we started our training, of course, we got good coverage from the local media. All right. Of course, as I mentioned to you earlier, there was no social media, there was no online thingy like what we have now. But but we got good coverage from our local press, national dailies, and when people came to know about this project, they had their doubts. They were doubtful. Of course, we received a lot of critics, and some even said that uh, I don't think they can even reach the base camp, let alone the summit. That sort of things. So it did not deter us. So it only boosted us up. We told ourselves that we are going to prove all these people wrong. Okay, we are going to prove the international media wrong, because there was an article in Newsweek sometime in May 1997. All right, so in the Newsweek, I still have the magazine with me. I still have a copy of the magazine. So uh, it was mentioned about the Malaysian team being at the base camp. Okay, and the title was "Gods Must Be Angry" or something. All right.
Serious.
Yeah, gods must be angry. They wrote about the Malaysian team being inexperienced, being there at the base camp, trying to summit Mount Everest, and the foreign teams fear that the Malaysian climbers may slow down the others from reaching the summit. And these guys are like rock stars back home in Kuala Lumpur, and they even had lines like they even had Coca-Cola at the base camp and that sort of thing. You know, uh, because there are many other critics about the Malaysian team, not only by the locals but also by the international media. All right, so we wanted to prove all these people wrong. So that was why the selection committee members, the association, and the Ministry of Youth and Sports made sure that this expedition is organized in a professional manner, to make sure that every steps are taken with utmost consideration and all safety measures, to just to make sure to minimize the risk factor. But even so, we lost one life during our expedition. So that's the only setback. And of course, there were other casualties uh, during our time there at the base camp.
So, Dato, what is one or two of the most toughest moments you had during this whole climbing process?
Right, climbing towards the summit was and on the way down on the way down towards Camp 4, and all the way back to base camp was the toughest part. Was the toughest part because we were extremely exhausted when we used all our energy, all our reserves to reach the summit. When we reach the summit, that is only half the battle. Reaching the summit, flying the Malaysian flag is only half the battle, right? We still have to go all the way down to the base camp to claim victory. So and we also know that most accidents and death happen on the way down and not on the way up. So so we were extremely careful, but it took us many hours. It took us about 6 hours just to clear the section between the summit and Camp 4. Just to go down. Usually going down is much faster, but because we were at the highest point in the world, and it was a knife edge ridge, a simple mistake can be fatal. So we had to be extremely careful, one step at a time. And I wasn't sure at the time, even if because we were already extremely tired, uh, and since we were going down, we did not use much effort because the gravity is already taking us down step by
Right.
step.
Right.
So even though there was less oxygen content in the air, but it was still okay. To We were panting away, but we could just move on and on and on towards Camp 4. So after 6 hours, I was in front of my tent. Gary and Fauzan, they were just waiting. They were just seated there, and they were just waiting for me. As soon as I reached the campsite, I had no energy to even remove my ice boots. I was just standing there. I just bent over, and I was just too tired to pull off the shoelaces, because we don't tie our shoelaces like how we do here. It had to be a date knot, to make sure that it just doesn't come off while we are climbing, because we got no time for that, while climbing. So it was a did not, so I had no energy to even to remove that. So there was Gary on one side and Fauzan on the other side. Both of them helped me to remove my ice boots. You see. So I just went into the tent. I did not remove my summit suit, just remove my ice boots, the crampons. I just got into my sleeping bag, and I just dozed off for a while. So that was how tired I was at the time. And then they woke me up. They woke me up after some time. I had some tea, I had some light food, and then I checked on the oxygen bottle. It was empty. So then got changed into another bottle. So I just took the oxygen mask and then just put it into my sleeping bag, just zip it up, and then I went off again until the next morning. So I was extremely exhausted, and I did not know. Of course, when we came back to Camp 4, there were a lot of calls from the base camp. Members of our team from the base camp, they were asking Fauzan and Gary about me and Mohan. How are they? And so I could just hear them saying that Mag is already sleeping. he's already he was already in his sleeping bag, and he's already sleeping. He's tired. He will probably talk to you later. So I could hear all that, but I just did not had the energy then to just rise up and to answer all those calls. So I was, and then the next morning the Sherpa came into the tent and said, "Hey Mag, it's morning. Aren't you going to go home? Are you going to stay here?" So I woke up, and then got ready, and then we wrapped up. We dismantled our tents, packed up everything, and some of our Sherpas from Camp 2 came up to Camp 4 at the time to clear the campsite, and we left. And it was another very tiring journey from Camp 4 to Camp 2. So by then, the two other guys who were stationed at Camp 2, uh, Zaidi, Paiman, and Murthy just left. They left in the morning. So only Major, the climbing leader, was there waiting for us at Camp 2. So as soon as we reached Camp 2, but this time I had energy. So I did not go to sleep immediately. So, we just changed into our lighter gears, and then we just had some chit chat, at the kitchen tent by the fire, talking about what happened the previous day. and we also plan to close down the campsite at Camp 2, and so we also communicated with those at camp at base camp, and they told us that they are sending more Sherpas up from base camp to Camp 2 the following morning for us to unpack, dismantle all the tents, and transport all the gears back to base camp. So that's what happened the next day, on the 25th morning. So it took us. It was probably the longest journey. It was probably the longest journey from Camp 2 to base camp. It took us 11 hours. It was, the movement was extremely slow, and the other thing that made the movement slow was there was an accident happened. A Sherpa fell into a crevasse, at the Kumbu Icefall. So by the time we reached the Kumbu Icefall, they were actually there were other Sherpas and foreigners trying to rescue the Sherpa who fell into the crevasse. His limbs were broken, but he was alive. So he was taken and then put him onto a stretcher, and they had to carry the stretcher through this icefall and through all these aluminium ladders. It was uh, very very slow process, because they had to be careful, because they don't want to drop the body, the injured person, into another crevasse. So they had to be extremely careful. So that was another reason why it took us so long for us to travel from Camp 2 to base camp. As soon as we reached base camp, the team members were just waiting. We all hugged and we all cried, and that's when we could actually claim a victory of summiting Mount Everest. That was another beautiful moment that evening on the 25th May.
And when was it that you all spoke? Because we all, I mean, a lot of us were watching that the whole thing live, right? When was the moment that you spoke to Tun Dr. Mahathir at that point of time? Was it at the peak when you all, radioed down to base 4?
No, actually, we did not speak to Thun.
Okay,
Okay, we were told by the RTM crew members that they will try to connect us from the summit to the Prime Minister, who was in London at the time. All right, but something went wrong with the communication. So Thun could only speak to those who were at the base camp and not to
right,
those
right.
who were at the summit. So Thun actually spoke to some of them who were at the base camp, and Thun did the Prime Minister did ask if he could speak to those at the summit, because I didn't know all this then.
Yeah,
I only
yeah,
knew all this when I came back to Kuala Lumpur and watched it, the recorded program. So he actually wanted to speak to those who were on the summit, but because of some communication problems, he could not speak to us. He spoke to those on at the base camp. So that's what happened.
right.
But we did
So,
speak to the sports minister. We did speak to the sports minister that evening from the base camp.
right. So what is one the one, like, like this whole experience? What is the some of the key things that you remember? Some of your learning points in this whole climb.
All right, this is about it's the whole process, project, Malaysia Everest 97 project. Okay, it is not just one person's dream. All right, it's a dream that has been passed on from one generation to another generation of climbers. Okay, the early members of the association who actually wanted to climb Everest, they mooted the idea of climbing Everest, and it was carried on from one person to another, without greed. You know, the point, the ambition was to put a Malaysian flag on the summit. So it was passed on. So uh, it's about being focused. I learned about being focused. I learned about having concrete goal, irrespective of who is going to be there. in the final days to accomplish that mission. Okay, everybody worked towards the same goal, the same interest. Although only the two of us managed to reach the summit in the end, but it was still a team effort, right? So we learned about teamwork, how important each and every member of the team is. You know how each and everyone played their part to make the whole things successful. It's about commitment. You know how committed each and every member has to be to pull through a project as big as this. You know, it has taken many years. It was a painstaking waiting, but eventually we accomplished just because we were all committed in our own ways towards realizing that goal. It was about confidence. Okay, we were confident, you know, that we can achieve what we had worked for all this while. We did not easily gave up to all those critics, because there were many questions thrown to us. Because when the government is getting involved in such a huge project, when the government is channeling a huge amount of fund, of course they had their questions, because you know it is not just anyone's money, but it is the people's money.
Yeah.
Okay, so money has to be spent wisely. So there were a lot of questions that need to be answered, and we did not just shy away, but we were confident that, you know, with the right commitment, we can become successful. And we were consistent throughout all those trying times. You know, we had no funds coming in. We had to come up, think of some ways to keep on training, whatever way it is. You know, either to take up a bank loan, or to borrow money from somebody, or you know, to just swipe your credit card away. So you know, so we were constantly on it, you know, from day one until we accomplished the mission. So these are some of the things that I learned. You know, things that I did not learn when I was in school, I did not learn when I was in college. But the mountain, the harsh terrain, the programs that I went through, the mountains that I've climbed, has taught me a life's lesson that I could not have possibly learned anywhere else.
Amazing, amazing. It's truly amazing. So, just for all our friends who have been with us in this live session with Datuk Mac, thank you so much, Datuk Mac. If you want to have, any last questions that you have, you want to throw it out, please do so. If you want to just say bye to Datuk Mac, to well wish him, just do the last shout out here because we are finishing up soon. So, Datuk Mac, what have you climbed on any other mountains after this big historical climb?
Right, I have been climbing. Of course, Mount Kinabalu is my yearly thing. I don't just climb mountains, but I also take students and anyone who wants to climb with me up Mount Kinabalu every year. I make it a point to climb Kinabalu at least once a year. Sometimes I have done uh, more than twice, 3 times in a year, but at least once. But this year, because of MCO, we could not climb Kinabalu. So we will see if we can make it next year. That's one thing that I've been doing. I am not only climbing, but I also incorporate other elements into climbing. Initially, it was just exposing students and youth to climbing activities. So after some time, to make it more interesting, I started introducing other elements into climbing, like a mountain conservation program. You know, how to conserve nature. What are the things that we can do to make sure that we take care of these mountains for our future generation of climbers? like Mount Kinabalu, there are uh, plants, flora and fauna that are only found on Mount Kinabalu and nowhere else in the world. All right. So we need to take care of those indigenous plants so that our future generation of climbers will also be able to see what we are seeing today, because these indigenous plants are slowly vanishing, partially due to global warming and also due to excessive trekking on the mountain. Okay, so there is this invasive plant that is growing wildly on Mount Kinabalu. It is called the dandelion. It is a plant that actually originated from Europe. It could have probably brought into Mount Kinabalu by European foreign trekkers, because outdoor enthusiasts, when they travel, they wear their trekking boots all the time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this seed of this plant could have stuck to their climbing boots, and so when they were climbing Mount Kinabalu, probably the seat, has just loosened up from the trekking shoe, and probably that is one of the theory that I've heard, while I was there in Kinabalu region, how this plant that was found in Europe is here and growing wild, and it is actually invading all the other plants, that are found only in Mount Kinabalu. So sometimes we join this group of people from Sabah to just uproot these plants, but this plant is just growing rapidly. Then, and a lot of actions are needed, to make sure that we keep Mount Kinabalu the way it is for our future generation of climbers. So these are some of the things that I include in my climbing, not just climbing, but also to all think about other conservation programs as well. Besides that, we also made plans to climb Mount Everest again
I
in
was just about to
2012.
ask you this.
Yeah, in 2012, we were planning. We started this program in 2008. We got a group of climbers, all government servants this time, 100% government servants, civil servants. We went to Nepal a few times. We climbed a few peaks, including the highest during this time was Island Peak. It's about 6,900 odd meters above sea level. But unfortunately, we could not go on with the program because being civil servants, all of us, our leave application was rejected. Uh, so none of us were willing to go on no pay leave for at least 2.5 months to 3 months, because with all our heavy commitments,
Yeah.
there's no way we can just go off to climb a mountain without being paid. So on that circumstances, majority of them, almost all of them, decided not to continue with the program. Eventually, there was only one person. There was only one person who said that no problem. Since I'm a contract staff, I am willing to resign and climb Everest. So what we did, we managed to get all of an NGO, outdoor association. We managed to get a few guys from there, a few members from there, pull them into this program, and made up a very small team of 5 climbers. And they were sent to Nepal, but unfortunately, nobody submitted Everest. So that was what happened in 2012. So this one climber, he managed to climb up to 8,400 or 500 meters, but he could not summit.
Wow. That's
He could
just
not
so
summit.
close up the
Yes, he
summit,
was, I
really.
think, sort of 400 meters off the summit.
Wow.
So he could not summit Everest. So that was what we did. Of course, given a chance, I would love to climb, but probably I had to wait until I retire, because I cannot afford to go on no pay leave. That I cannot do.
Yeah. It's such a big adventure.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So I think we are coming up to the end of the show. Dato Meg, thank you so much for your sharing. I think it's truly inspiring. A lot of friends here, if you see in the comments here, there's, everyone has, your sharing has actually made a great impact today to a lot of people who are actually watching. In fact, a lot of people are inspired by your story of your climb, the struggle, and then ultimately triumph, having the triumph of climbing the peak. It's just amazing. I mean, I'm just here listening to you, and it's just gives me goosebumps. And look at the Everest mountain at the back.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Right. Because I didn't
So
realize that, we have been talking for about 2 hours now.
yeah, it just the time just flew, and the details that you've been giving, I think it's just wonderful. Some of them have shared, some of them here are actually climbers themselves, like for example, like Palani. He said, as and Sivanes, they said, like, as you were sharing your experience, they were feeling like they were climbing the mountain themselves. you know yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we have a lot of friends here who have, said, you are really a hero. And to a lot of Malaysians here, thank you so much on behalf of everybody for being on the show and sharing your experience. I hope to see you again sometime in another show. And please continue inspiring everyone here in Malaysia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vyasa. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your conversation matters.
Yes. So with that,
Right.
bye bye, everyone. We'll see you again
Thank
in
you,
another
folks. Thank
show.
you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.